the definition of meditation definitely does not include the word cushion. I think we often have an idea of that it is something that you do during your day, for which you clear space and then have an isolated occasion where you are with yourself. And I think that's one of the major hindrances that many of us experience. I would say that meditation is more a way of life, a questioned way of life, an observant way of life, than it is necessarily something that you do on your cushion. Sitting on your cushion is part of what meditation means. But meditation, above all, implies learning to look. And we're surprisingly bad at seeing what there is. And when we can't see what there is, we can't know what we see either. One of my teachers, Sayadaw Pa'auk, often had this phrase, seeing and knowing. And I thought that was pretty helpful in the sense that it shows where our practice starts. Our practice starts with learning to see. One of my friends is actually a pretty famous painter. And he at one point told me that at the beginning, when he started to have this vocation to become a painter, and he started to make some initial drawings, that the first thing that he noticed is that or how bad he was at looking at the world. Now, when you first make a drawing or of a tree or any object, that we see so little. No, we rely heavily on our presumptions. And so in that sense, meditation is a form of almost of artistry. It's learning to first learn to see, to look, and to see deeply, and to stay with something, and to look at it again and again and again, as they call in Zen, to look with a beginner's mind, to have that sense of curiosity and of wonder that remains with you. And that is something that you need to cultivate. The older we get, the more we lose that sense of wonder often. For children, it is necessary. For children, the world is new. They cannot live without wonder. But when we grow older, we fall into a rut. Things become familiar. And the meditator has to learn again how to make everything unfamiliar, to see that despite our projection that things stay the same, in fact, they never do. That the world, that as it appears to us, is fluid. It fluctuates continuously. And so it is a questioning of life, I would say, by looking. And by looking consistently, we start to know patterns. And of course, as Buddhist practitioners, what interests us mostly is what these patterns do to us. We are not substantialists in the sense of saying that some patterns are wrong and some are right. Some habitual patterns or actions are wrong inherently or right inherently. We relate things to their outcome and to their intentionality. So when you look what happens in the mind and what happens with the way the world appears to us, we start to see recurring instances of things that have negative effects, that hamper our well-being, that hamper our capacity to live in the first place. And other processes within us, other actions that we encounter within us, do the opposite. They seem to be giving life. They give a sense of openness, of being here, being merging with others, being connected, being embodied, being integrated. And so that is where meditation starts. And so it is not it's not a normative process in that sense. We don't come with preconceived conclusions about what is wrong and right, but we learn to see what certain actions, what certain perceptions do to ourselves and to others. And then when our knowledge starts to deepen, we start to see that these habitual patterns that we recognize have commonalities. When things go wrong, there are aspects to our perception and to our intentionality, that all these moments that are going wrong, that lead to our anxiety, that lead to our worry, that lead to our suffering, and to that of others, that they have something in common, something that they share, that they feel alienated. They are responses to what we think about what we see rather than what we see, and so on and so forth. And at every moment, not at most moments that that we experience as full of life, that we experience as wholesome, lack that aspect. They don't feel alienated, they feel integrated. And they feel where we merge with others rather than being occupied with our preconceptions for others. Now they feel like we create both space for ourselves and for others to show ourselves instead of looking at our preconceptions. Most of the time we are busy what we think of something in the first place, rather than creating a novel space where we say, okay, show me you again, because you are different in every moment. And I think above all, that is meditation. And then you can say it has two aspects. Then you can say it has an aspect on the cushion and it has an aspect in life. And these two are complementary. So the cushion is like, to compare it with scientists, that is the laboratory space. Now, in a laboratory, you make things simple because life is too complex. Now, if you want to know how certain bacteria respond, or how viruses work, and so on and so forth, or how primary particles work, then you create circumstances that are as simple as possible so that you can detect patterns. And so that is what meditation does. So you learn to deeply simplify the mind. And we often use the word concentration for shamatha, but I think serenity or simplicity would actually be a far better term. We make our minds as simple, as natural as we possibly can, and there's different methods for that. And within that simplicity, we start to look. We start to look at fundamental processes and fundamental aspects of what it means to be a human being. Also, on the one hand, we look into the nature of things, like what is mind, what are phenomena, how do they interrelate, what is their way of existing. But we also look at aspects of our humanity. What does it mean to love, really? What is equanimity? What is compassion? What is joy? But all these things would remain sort of hollow and disconnected if we would not apply them to life. That is also one of the great challenges that any meditator faces. Now, it is easy to sit on your cushion and sit there and think like, oh, I love all living beings. But the moment you get up to the supermarket and someone goes ahead of the queue, then let's see how long your love lasts. You find that is hampered. And that's fascinating as well. I mean, that's again, not a normative judgment. It's just something that happens. And that means that there's something to learn there, especially when you look, when you don't judge yourself, but merely see like, oh, so this happened and then this was my response. So there is limitations to my love. So why is that? And is it helpful or is that not helpful? And so then with that information, you go back to your cushion and you go over that situation. So like in some instances, I do have that love. In other instances, I don't. Is that a good thing? Is that not such a good thing? Is it helpful or not? So you get a good interaction between these two aspects, and that I would call that's the investigated or explored life.